Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Reading Rainbows, where we're reading Inkheart by Cornelia Funke. And as I stated in my last video, I am going to try to upload 2 videos a day. I'm not sure how it'll work out. We'll see. But let's see how this goes. Chapter 44, Farid's Report. "Alright," said Spiff. "Now this is what I say. Anyone who thinks they've got a better plan can say so afterwards. Michael D. Larabite, the baubles go for broke." When Farid came back, Silvertongue was waiting for him. Eleanor was asleep under the trees, her face flushed by the midday heat, but Silvertongue was still standing where Farid had left him. Relief spread over his face as he saw the boy coming up the hill. "We heard shots," he called. "I thought we'd never see you again." "They were shooting at cats," replied Farid, letting himself drop onto the grass. Silvertongue's concern made Farid feel awkward. He wasn't used to people being concerned for his safety. "What kept you? Where have you been all this time?" That was the kind of reception he was used to. Even Dustfinger's face had always been closed to him, as uncommunicative as a barred door. But with Silvertongue's face, it was different. Anxiety, joy, anger, pain, love. It was all plain to see, written on his brow, even when he tried to hide it, just as he was now trying not to ask the question that must be on the tip of his tongue ever since he saw Farid approaching. "Your daughter's all right," said Farid, "and she got your message, though she's shut up on the top floor of Capricorn's house. But Gwyn is a wonderful climber, even better than Dustfinger, and that's saying something." He heard Silvertongue breathe a sigh of relief, as if all the cares in the world had lifted from his shoulders. "I've even brought an answer." Farid took Gwyn out of the backpack, held him firmly by the tail. No, don't hold animals by the tail. That's mean." And untied Maggie's note from his collar. Silvertongue unfolded the papers carefully as if he feared his fingers might wipe away the words. "An end paper," he murmured. "She must have torn it out of a book." "What does she say?" "Have you tried to read it?" Farid shook his head and took a piece of bread out of his pants pocket. Gwyn had earned a reward, but the marten had disappeared, probably to catch up on his long overdue daytime sleep. "You can't read, is that it?" "No." "Well, not many people could read this anyway. It's the same secret writing that I used. As you saw, not even Eleanor can decipher it." Silvertongue smoothed out the paper. It was a dull yellow like desert sand. He read, and then suddenly raised his head. "Good heavens," he murmured. "Imagine that." He must have just read the part where, she said that she can read stuff out of books too. But, yeah, I'm liking that, we get even just these little details, like, the color of the paper. Dull yellow like desert sand. And I was half expecting Mo to start going off on, this end paper must be from such and such book because, this was a very popular color for that book, and, or this genre of book, or, whatever. Just because Mo, as a bookbinder, would know this sort of stuff, you would think. But maybe I'm wrong. Imagine what? Farid bit into the bread he'd been keeping for the marten. It was stale. They'd have to steal some more soon. "Maggie can do it too." Silvertongue shook his head incredulously and stared at the note in his hand. Farid propped one elbow on the grass. "I know. They're all talking about it. I heard them. They say she can work magic like you, and now Capricorn doesn't have to wait for you anymore. He doesn't need you now." Silvertongue looked at him as if this idea hadn't yet crossed his mind. "True," he murmured. "Now they'll never let her go. Not of their own accord." He stared at the words his daughter had written on the paper. To Farid they looked like the tracks left by snakes slithering across the sand. What else does she say? They've caught Dustfinger, and Maggie's to read someone out of the book to come and kill him tomorrow when it gets dark. He lowered the note and ran his hand through his hair. Yes, I heard about that too. Farid pulled up a blade of grass and tore it into tiny pieces. It seems they've locked him in the crypt under the church. What else is in that note? Doesn't your daughter say who it is she's to bring out for Capricorn? Silvertongue shook his head, but Farid saw that he knew more about it than he was saying. Come on, you can tell me. Some kind of executioner, am I right? A man who knows all about cutting off heads. No, not a man, not cutting off heads. Silvertongue acted as if he hadn't heard him. I saw something like that once, said Farid, so it's all right for you to tell me about it. If the executioner is good with a sword, it's all over quite fast. Silvertongue looked at him for a moment, astonished, and then shook his head. It's not an executioner, he said, at least not a man with a sword, not a man at all. See, that's what I just said. Farid turned pale. Not a man? Silvertongue shook his head. It was some time before he went on. They call him the Shadow, he said in an expressionless voice. I don't remember the exact words describing him in the book. All I know is that I pictured him to myself as a figure made completely of burning ashes, red and gray, and without a face. Farid stared at him. For a moment he wished he hadn't asked. They're all looking forward to this execution, he said in a faltering voice. Those blackjackets are in a really good mood. They're going to kill the woman Dustfinger was visiting as well, because she tried to find the book for him. He burrowed his bare toes into the earth. Dustfinger had tried to get him used to wearing shoes because of the snakes, but when you wore shoes you felt as if someone were pinching your toes. So in the end he'd thrown them on the fire. They probably weren't the right size, first of all, but second of all, I guess if you've lived your whole life never wearing shoes, then to put shoes on would feel quite uncomfortable. What woman? One of Capricorn's maids? Silvertongue looked at him with a gleam in his eyes. Farid nodded. He rubbed his toes. They were covered with ant bites. She can't talk, dumb as a sandfly. Dustfinger has a photo of her in his backpack. She's probably helped him quite often, and I think he's in love with her. It hadn't been difficult for Farid to explore the village. There were lots of boys there no older than him. They washed the cars for the blackjackets, cleaned their boots and their guns, delivered love letters. He'd delivered love letters himself in that other life. He hadn't had to clean boots, but weapons, yes. And he'd had to shovel camel dung. Polishing cars was much lighter work. Ooh, I wouldn't want to have to shovel camel dung. Ugh. Silvertongue looked up at the sky. Tiny clouds were drifting by, pale as a heron's feathers, ruffled like acacia flowers. I don't know if I said that word right. Clouds had often passed across this sky. Farid liked that. The desert sky he had known before was always empty. Tomorrow, murmured Silvertongue. What am I to do? How am I going to get her out of Capricorn's house? Perhaps I can get in somehow by night. I'd need one of those black suits, I've brought you one. Farid took first the jacket, then the pants out of the backpack, stole them off a clothesline, and a dress for Eleanor. Silvertongue looked at him with such obvious admiration that Farid blushed. What an extraordinary fellow you are! Perhaps I should ask you how I'm going to get Maggie out of this village. Farid smiled awkwardly and looked at his toes. Ask him? No one had ever asked him for his ideas before. He had always been the scout, the tracker dog. Others had made the plans for robberies, raids, revenge. You didn't ask the dog's opinion. You beat the dog if he didn't obey. There are only 2 of us, and there are at least 20 of them down there, he said. It won't be easy. Silvertongue looked over at their campsite and the woman asleep under the trees. Aren't you counting Eleanor? You should. She's much fiercer than I am, and just at the moment she's very, very angry. Farid had to smile. All right, 3, he said. 3 against 20. Yes, I know, that doesn't sound good. Silvertongue stood up, sighing. Come on, let's tell Eleanor what you found out, he said, but Farid stayed where he was in the grass. He picked up one of the dry branches lying everywhere. First-class firewood. There was any amount of it here. In his old life, people would have gone a long, long way for wood like this. They'd have given good money for it. Farid looked at the wood, rubbed his finger over the rough bark, and looked at Capricorn's village. We could get fire to help us, he said. Silvertongue looked at him blankly. What do you mean? Farid picked up another stick and another. He heaped them all up, all the dry twigs and branches. Dustfinger showed me how to tame fire. It's like Gwyn. It bites you if you don't know how to handle it, but if you treat it properly, it does as you want. That's what Dustfinger taught me. If we use it at the right time, in the right place. Silvertongue bent down, picked up one of the branches, and weighed it in his hand. And how are you going to control it once you've got a fire going? It hasn't rained for ages. The hills will be ablaze before you know it. Farid shrugged. Only if the wind blows the wrong way. But Silvertongue shook his head. No, he said firmly, I won't play with fire in these hills unless I can't think of anything else. Let's steal into the village tonight. Maybe we can get past the guards. Maybe they know each other so little they'll think I'm one of them. After all, we managed to slip through their fingers once, so maybe we can do it again. That is a lot of maybes, said Farid. I know, replied Silvertongue. I know. So, another transitional chapter. Not a heck of a lot going on that we didn't already know. But, yeah, it's interesting how Silvertongue, well, first of all, it's interesting how Farid was immediately like, yeah, I've already got you the jacket, the pants, yeah, I've got her address, I already know that, yeah, I'm gonna have to help you get into the village to rescue your daughter. Yep, got it, no worries. But also how Mo's just like, okay, well, maybe this will happen, and maybe that, and maybe this, and then everything will be great. While Ferd's just like, dude, fire? Fire will help us get in there? So, we'll see tomorrow what happens. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you later. Bye!